The Bobby O Show.
Welcome to the Bobby O Show. My name is Bob O. Potzner. I'm an attorney in Danbury, Connecticut. I live in Richfield, Connecticut. And when I was at Yale as an undergraduate, I was a political science major. And I was taught that you need to go to source information to really understand the politics of our society. And all of us are probably reading newspapers, maybe papers that are biased one way or the other. We're watching TV shows and MSNBC and Fox and whatever. But that gives you information that's perhaps a little bit slanted. Today, I have chosen to have a show dedicated to what's going on in Israel in the Mideast. And I have someone who's an American citizen who has emigrated to Israel but lives in both countries, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And I'm a Jew, and I'm proud of that. And so today we're going to talk about Israel, the Mideast. I'm introducing to you my friend, attorney Veronica Reich. Welcome, Veronica.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
It really is nice. When did you come to the United States again?
This trip back, I just came July 3rd.
Of this year?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
go back when?
I plan to go back September 10th.
And you're a dual citizen?
I am. I became an Israeli citizen about 3 years ago, almost 3 years ago, and cherish and maintain my American citizenship, which I got when I was about 6 or 7 years old.
So let's go back to your background. Where were you born?
I was born in Budapest, Hungary.
I won't ask you the year.
You can, it's fine. In 1955, it was post-Holocaust. Both my parents were Holocaust survivors, having been in slave labor camps or in concentration camps.
Where were they in concentration?
My mother was an Auschwitz survivor.
Oh, wow.
The worst of the worst, yeah. And my father had a valuable wartime skill, so he was stuck in slave labor camps most of the war. The reason that many Hungarian Jews survived is because there were no deportations to concentration camps until late in the war in 1944, when Germany actually took over Hungary. Hungary was always an ally, but it became different in 44, and then my mother was deported to Auschwitz, and that date probably saved her life, because you could survive a month or two, whatever, in Auschwitz if you were lucky. You couldn't survive years.
Were your parents married when they were put into concentration camps?
No, my father was married to his first wife and had a child. My mother was married to her first husband, all of whom just disappeared in ash or in Siberia. No one knows.
That's
and then
including your father's first wife and child. They also disappeared?
Yes, deported, gone.
Now, you came to the United States at how old?
I was a baby. I was a year old. The Hungarian Revolution broke out in 1956, where Hungarians were revolting against the communists that were controlled entirely by the then Soviet Union. And the Hungarian government was a puppet government aligned with the communists. And the people of Hungary started a rebellion, hoping that they could cast off the communists. When that war broke out, very suddenly, my parents, in the greatest show of courage I ever could have imagined, decided literally from one day to the next that they're leaving.
This was 1956?
In 1956.
This is when the Russians came into Hungary? Is that when
Russians came into Hungary in response to the revolution of the Hungarian people. And they, having survived Auschwitz and slave labor camps and a lot of anti-Semitism, said, if we can get out now, we're going while the going's good.
How old were your parents when they got out?
Oh, they were not. My father was 48 years old.
Oh, they were older?
He was not, yes, they were not young. My mother was about 10 years younger than him. She was about 38. But they'd lived already, you know, they'd had a lot of life experience, a lot of tragedy.
What were their professions? Did they have professions when they came over?
My mother was, you know, I mean, she worked in certain jobs, and then my father was in a business with his father making furniture and other objects out of wrought iron.
So he had a skill.
He had a great skill, yeah, and he
I'm
brought
not,
that
I'm
skill.
not diminishing your mother, by the way. I'm just saying that. But
He had a great skill, and he brought that to the United States and started a business here, which grew very slowly, but built us a wonderful life in America.
now let's see. Your parents came over. Did they speak English when they came over?
Not a word.
You told me an interesting story before we started the show today about how you were a little bit drugged when you came over. Tell me that
Yes.
story. You were how old and what did they do?
As I said, my parents decided literally from one moment to the next, we're getting out. Now imagine for a minute being 48 years old and walking out of your home and never coming back. Just leaving everything behind, a life, everything. We're a materialistic bunch, you know. Left everything behind. And put me in a baby carriage and walked to the nearest train station. The war had broken out, borders were relatively unprotected, so people were streaming out of the country. Then they boarded a train that went as close to any border as they could find, and they went close to the Austrian border. My father was from that area, the part of Hungary that was also very Austrian. And they got on the train, got to the border, met up with some peasant groups that were making money bringing people across the border. Because don't forget, no man's land, the division between a country, between Canada and the United States, it's 6 feet. Between a communist country and a non-communist country, it's miles and miles and miles over difficult terrain. So they had to pay peasants to guide them across the border. But first, they had to put some kind of drugs, something, in my baby bottle. I was a year old, because I had to fall asleep, because a crying baby would get you shot by the border guards.
Wow.
And they managed to cross and got into Austria, where the Red Cross had set up refugee camps for people streaming out of the country.
And when they left, there was not someone waiting for them to help them. They just went?
They just walked out of their lives.
Wow.
Walked out because they were Jews, because they had suffered a lot, because they wanted to live freely in a democracy, and they wanted to be able to live as Jews.
And I would suspect that now that you're older than 1.5 years old, that the life that your parents had, the way they left Hungary, what they went through with Auschwitz survivors, et cetera, that I would presume it had a very important impact on you as a human being.
Of course it did. It made me very sensitive to my parents' feelings. They never were able to dispel the feeling of, we got to be careful. We got to, you don't know who's coming. Eat quickly because they might take your food away.
I respect that.
And their ideas were just work, provide for your family, and live as a good citizen.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
No.
So you're the only child?
I am. My father had a child from his first marriage. When my parents were married, they also had a child who died in an industrial accident before they left Hungary. She was 4.
Oh, I see.
But I never knew her. She passed before I was born.
Did they ever talk about, as you were growing up, did they ever talk much about their experience in the Holocaust?
No.
Because some people, I was going to say, many people, and I don't know that many, but I had relatives, et cetera, and there was not a lot of conversation about the experience of the Holocaust.
There were 2 schools of thought. One of my dearest friends, her parents talked about their suffering relentlessly, just couldn't get past it, and were very ill, mentally ill because of it, and couldn't get past it, and her entire childhood was tinged with that. My parents were of a different school. They didn't speak of it. When I found out a couple of details here and there, it's usually when they were talking to someone else.
Did they speak Hungarian when they came here? Or did they speak
Only Hungarian.
So are you still bilingual in Hungarian?
Well, since my parents and my husband are gone, with whom I spoke Hungarian, I've lost a lot of it, but I was fluent in Hungarian. I knew Hungarian before English. They put me in nursery school because my parents had to work, and I went and didn't know a word. Not a word.
It's a very, very difficult background, and part of what we have today in our society, and I'm going to get into that a little later on, is that you have this experience of coming over, American citizen, et cetera. You knew a little bit about your parents' background, you knew about the Auschwitz situation, and so that's a different perspective, I believe, than let's say the 35-year-old kids nowadays who were too old to know about Vietnam War, who don't know about the Holocaust. So let me ask this question. I'm going to ask this daintily, as I often don't.
Go ahead.
I'm going to take a shot. Tell me, please, how does it make you feel when you hear certain anti-Semites saying Holocaust didn't really happen or it's fake news? Tell me how that makes you feel because of your background.
Honestly, mostly sad. Also enraged. But it makes me sad because why, when we have every bit of information at our disposal, we have the media, we have the internet, we have everything, how people can distort facts so horribly, and the lack of empathy is horrifying. It's very sad, and it makes me enraged when they say that one of the defining issues of our time, one of the greatest atrocities, if not the greatest atrocity of the 20th century, didn't happen. I mean,
it's crazy. It's Meshuggah. It's crazy.
It is crazy, but it's also very frightening. It's very frightening, because if that can be believed, and that kind of insane belief is growing and gathering strength, what other misinformation will become part of the narrative?
Read tomorrow's newspaper the day after, you'll see.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this. Let's get from when you were 1.5 years old, you grew up in Bridgeport, Connecticut?
I grew up in Bridgeport and, upwardly mobile, moved to Fairfield.
You went to Andrew Ward?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I'm an Andrew Ward graduate. And then I went on to college. And my parents lived in the house that they built in Fairfield until my father was over 90.
My Uncle Jack lived at 118 Lloyd Drive, Fairfield, Connecticut. We would go every Sunday from Shelton, where I grew up, to have Sunday with the family, because family was very, very important.
Of course.
And so now you became a lawyer.
Yes, went to Columbia undergrad, Barnard, and then went to law school, finished at NYU Law, and started to practice right away. I was very young. I graduated high school at 16 and college at 19. So when I was 22, most people were finishing college, I had finished law school and went right to work.
I was very young in those days too, but in any event, so you became a lawyer. That's when we first met. I think
Yes.
we first met in Bridgeport.
Yep.
And
Yes.
I've always had a lot of regard for you and a lot of
Thank you.
respect for you. In fact, I think you bought some Jewish stars for me from Israel.
Did. You asked me. I love shopping assignments, and especially in Israel, and I brought some for you.
I think it was for my son's bar mitzvah, maybe.
It's something like that.
Something like that. I really was pleased about that. In fact, he was going to be bar mitzvahed in Israel. I've never been to Israel, don't hit me yet, but I've had a couple trips planned that didn't happen, and one was we were going to have him get bar mitzvahed. He was born 1987, so it would be like in 2000, 2001, and we had to plunk down all the money for it, we were ready to rock and roll, and then there was a bombing in Yemen.
The Intifada happened in 2000.
And there were 200 or 225 American citizens killed.
Yes.
And we said, we really can't commit that. Now here's the irony. He got bar mitzvahed in Connecticut. My daughter did not want to get bar mitzvahed, but when she went to college, her senior year, she went to Hillel because she liked to go to Beis HaLachs once in a while. And the rabbi said, you guys haven't been bar mitzvahed, she and her best friend. They were going to go on birthright, which is essentially Israel pays for Jewish kids to come.
Yeah,
she was going to go on birthright, and the rabbi at Hillel said, hey, Jessica, why don't you get bat mitzvahed? And so she calls her and says, Dad, they want to get bat mitzvahed in Israel. What do you think? So inside I'm saying, yeah. But I said to her, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. She said, Dad, besides what you said, I'm going to do it. She got bat mitzvahed at the Wailing Wall in Israel.
Okay, you have to forgive me. I don't often challenge you unless I have to, but I have to make 2 corrections.
Uh-oh, okay.
Number 1, a girl, according to traditional Judaism, becomes a bat mitzvah at the age of 12. A boy is a bar mitzvah at the age of 13. It occurs by operation of the calendar.
Well, thank you.
When you talk about being bar mitzvahed, you're talking about a ceremony and or a celebration
Right.
to celebrate that
Being
fact.
called to the Torah.
Being called, boys are often called to the Torah. Now girls are often called to the Torah. Things change.
Thank you for correcting me on my show. I appreciate that.
Yes, and there's another really critical correction I must make. You
Okay.
have to forgive me for it,
I
but
would always forgive you.
it's not the Wailing Wall.
What do you call it?
The Western Wall.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay.
We don't wail. We go there regularly.
See why we're still friends all these years? Only 2 people in the world can tell me when I'm wrong, and you're one of them.
Oh, that's
Maybe
exciting.
I should say 22 people. So in any event, fast forward, you became obviously very involved in Judaism, or stayed involved in Judaism. So when did that really start, when you got really involved?
Well, my parents were not as observant as I am now, but I did become more observant primarily probably in my high school years through synagogue youth group activities.
Young
And
Judea?
Not Young Judea, it's a different movement, NCSY.
NCSY.
National Conference of Synagogue Youth. It is the youth arm of the Orthodox movement, the Orthodox Union. And I made many friends, and I learned so much and became more and more committed as I went along. As an adult, my husband and I were very committed to raising our children in a traditionally observant household. My children went to Jewish day schools, we call it, which is a Jewish parochial school essentially, from nursery school through high school. And when my tuition for kindergarten and second grade was more than a year at Columbia, I realized we're in big trouble. But we were committed to it, and they went to school throughout, all through high school as well. And then, as a older adult, I guess, my kids were grown and out, I became very active in an organization called AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee.
How old about were you at the time?
In my late 20s.
Late 20s.
And it had a huge impact on me in a lot of ways. My love of Israel, my Zionism, stemmed
So define for the people, what does Zionism mean?
Zionism just refers to the right of the Jewish people to establish a nation in their traditional homeland, the land of Israel.
And we'll get to
That's
that.
what Zionism
And
means.
we'll get to that on the phrase "from the river to the sea." But we'll get to
Oh,
that.
yes,
We'll get to that,
yes.
I'm sure, in this show or the following show.
We must.
We must. Okay, so you became very involved in Israel.
In AIPAC, in Israel, and in AIPAC. AIPAC is a lobbying organization. That's what we did. We lobbied senators and congressmen. We were focused, laser focused, on maintaining the U.S.-Israel relationship because of shared values and shared interests. And we would, as is our right as American citizens, we would lobby our elected officials to preserve and protect that relationship because it's good for Israel and real good for the United States.
You know, when I got bar mitzvahed, my father made us. I'm the generation where your father didn't ask you to do something.
Oh,
he
yeah.
told you. And I was told that on my bar mitzvah gifts that I got, I was going to buy Israeli bonds.
Yeah,
At
sure.
and I was told that you may never see the money, but it doesn't matter. I got the money back eventually for college. I used some.
Sure.
But there always was, and I was a conservative family, and it was always Israel was important. Tzedakah, which means.
Well, it's come to mean charity.
Right.
But do you know what it really means?
You're going to tell me, I'm sure.
Yes, tzedakah means righteous, right.
Yes, I knew that.
Being
Okay.
what's right. It's not giving charity to. It's doing what's right. You know, helping people that need help. It's a moral, ethical, biblical obligation. Tzedakah, yes.
Tzedakah. Okay, so now tell me, with all this background, I'm going to fast forward and I'm going to work backwards. Tell me when it was that when you moved to Israel.
Okay. I should go back a little bit more than
Go
that.
ahead, go ahead.
To age 38. I had never been to Israel until I was 38 years old, which was very unusual for my background and
right.
my
Sure.
colleagues, my friends. But we did. And something happened when that plane landed, and it may sound a little corny, but I saw the old sign at the old airport, welcome to Israel, in Hebrew and in English. And something happened to me at that moment. It literally was like a light switch. I came to the realization that I was home, and this is where I belonged. And it's the land of my people. It's the land where I am committed to. It's the land of my soul, my
So
heart.
even though you had never been there,
Never.
you'd never been there, and you were born in Budapest.
Born in Hungary, raised in the United States, and my late husband used to say, I got off that plane and developed a bad case of Jerusalem syndrome.
He was a good guy. By the way, your late husband was a good guy.
Yes, he was a wonderful guy. And he was also an immigrant and a refugee. He didn't come to this country till he was 14 years old.
Where'd he come from?
Romania.
Romania.
And he knew what it was like to live under communism. I didn't. I had no memory of it. But he knew. And that also impacted how we lived and how our children were raised.
So,
he knew.
So at 38 years of age, you had almost a religious experience or something,
Like
whatever.
an epiphany, I guess. But
So from that point forward, did you know you were going to move to Israel at some point in time?
at that point forward, I knew we'd be committed to Israel. And then 38, 48, maybe 15 years after that, we had the opportunity to purchase an apartment in Israel. And truth be told, it was my dream, not my husband's. I really wanted to make this investment. I really wanted to own a piece of the dream.
We're in Israel, by the way.
In Jerusalem.
In Jerusalem.
I have to live in
It's got to
Jerusalem.
be in Jerusalem.
I
So
love Jerusalem.
At about age 53.
Thereabouts.
Thereabouts. You had, and by the way, I said move to Israel. You actually live in both countries.
I do, except I live a greater amount of time in Israel.
So let's fast forward, because I want to get into some of the stories about what's going on in Israel right now.
Yes, of course.
And the first I want to go to is our first video to my directors. I'd like to show this video, and it's a short video, and let's see what it says. Now that song that they were singing was what?
Yes, it's the Hatikva, which means the hope, and it is the Israeli national anthem.
I like that especially because it's military people
Oh, yeah.
singing, and they're all off key, but they're singing with enthusiasm. What was that event?
That voice in the background, by the way, totally off key, was me. Because
I didn't want to say that. I knew who
Oh,
that was, but
terrible.
but when was that video?
That was at the last Israel Memorial Day, which leads immediately into Independence Day.
Okay. The Israeli Memorial Day is not our Memorial Day. What's the
No.
our of the United States?
No.
What's the Israeli Memorial Day?
It is the day that it is set aside to remember soldiers and victims of terror that have died for the state of Israel. And it's very serious. It's not a time for barbecues or sales. I mean, we do a lot of barbecuing, but that's mostly on Independence Day. It's a celebratory day. One rolls right into the other. They're a day apart. Jewish holidays start the evening before.
Correct.
So one evening starts with Memorial Day and goes through the day, and in the evening, the whole Gestalt switches and you go to Independence Day. But Israel has another Memorial Day.
Let's go to the first Memorial Day.
Okay.
And by the way, a lot of the questions I'm asking you, I know the answers to,
I
but
know.
but some of our audience may not know.
Right.
And also you'll find out that I made 2 mistakes already. I want to see what my third mistake's going to be.
No.
Okay, so the first Independence Day is when?
It varies on the English calendar because it's based on the Hebrew calendar, which
How many months a year
it's in May. It's in May.
But how many months are there in the Hebrew calendar?
12, except when it's a leap year when there are 13.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Yes,
Would-
that's how we make the lunar calendar correspond with the solar calendar, by adding a leap month every 4 years. It's complicated,
Well,
but it works.
Being a Jew is complicated, is it not?
Oh, yes,
yes
it
it
is.
Okay.
It is.
Okay, so what's the first Independence Day? Is that 1948, related to 1948?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. What happened in 1948, just for those who don't know?
Well, in 1947, the UN voted to have a partition plan. The British had left the mandate, which they had received after World War I, and they were in control of all of those lands. The British had left, and the UN had decided that there would be 2 states, one for Arabs, one for Jews. And because Jews did not have a state recognized by anyone else in over 2,000 years, they said, great, better something than nothing. And the Arab response was for 5 different armies to attack Israel.
Right.
And they said no. Okay? So Independence Day celebrates the independent, current state of Israel, because Israel is thousands of years old, not just 70-something.
What's the second Independence Day?
No, it's a Memorial Day.
I'm sorry.
Before that is Memorial Day, honoring victims of terror and soldiers that have died. A few days before that, also usually in May, there is Holocaust Remembrance Day. And that obviously memorializes the 6 million Jews murdered during the Holocaust, a technological and industrialized nation's effort to eradicate Jews of Europe. It's just what it was. And so many people I know suffered. Relatives of mine disappeared in ash during that time period. So we honor their memories and remember them. Why do we have 2 Memorial Days? The first Memorial Day, the one next to Independence Day, reminds us of the cost of having a country. And Holocaust Memorial Day reminds us of the cost of not having a country. Because if we had an Israel in the 30s or the 40s, Jewish life may not have been eradicated in Europe. But we didn't. So we remember that. Jews do a lot of remembering.
What was the year of the Six-Day War?
1967.
And what happened in the early 70s? Was there also another war in the 70s?
Well,
The Yom Kippur War? What was
yes, in 1973 was the Yom Kippur War. But Jews have fought defensive wars since 1948, when the War of Independence occurred.
I make reference to 73 because I was a sophomore, I guess, at Yale, in the Yale Law School auditorium where they were having the Yom Kippur
Service. Yes,
and
it was
Eric,
on Yom
and
Kippur.
Eric Siegel, who wrote Love Story,
Yeah.
was there. Everyone's pointing. I was in the mezzanine section. He was down below, and they announced
Yeah.
the invasion of Israel. I'll never forget that. And there was the sighs that happened.
I remember that exact moment.
Where
I was
were
in
you?
synagogue. It was Yom Kippur.
And we were fasting, so we were hungry.
And I was hungry,
pun
but
intended.
someone heard,
Yeah,
and
we
then
heard.
the rabbi announced it from the pulpit, the very heavy fighting has broken out in Israel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we've now spent about half an hour almost going through your background, which is very important to understand.
So fast.
Well, being with me always it's fast,
Oh,
right?
yes.
That's such a pleasure, right? You get to watch me the whole time. Let's now go fast forward, and we're going to come back in time.
Okay.
You decided to live primarily in Israel,
Yes.
starting about when?
Well, we made the decision about
After you bought the apartment.
After, well, when we bought the apartment, we bought a hole in the ground, and it took several years to build. And we had elderly parents that we were the only ones to take care of them. And I was working, and my husband was working. But because he was 7 years older than me, he was really ready to retire. And he was literally begging me to retire. And I was ready. Our apartment was finished. My parents had passed away, his mother had passed away, and we were going to spend more time in Israel. We were able to do it. Kids were grown and out, married, their own families. And we had the apartment. We came to visit a number of times during the year, 2-3 weeks at a time. But we were ready to really make the move, and then COVID hit. And we were not citizens yet, so we couldn't come.
Citizens of Israel.
Citizens of Israel. We were, we had started the application, but it's a very lengthy process. And they shut down the country. If you were not an Israeli citizen, you could not enter Israel during COVID, which made sense. I mean, we understood the restrictions. We all had them. So my beautiful apartment sat empty for almost 2 years. And unfortunately, my husband passed away very suddenly during COVID.
What year was that?
2020. And then I had to get my head straight, and
of course,
COVID had to get over with. And then I decided I was going to do it anyway. So I did. I finished my application for citizenship. I did the interviews. And I got on a plane and arrived in my apartment. Well, I arrived at the airport, and there was no fanfare. I was going like,
no band, no marching
I'm here,
band,
nothing. My friends had the flags, and the chauffeur was being blown. The ram's horn that announces major events. And I said, "Okay, hi, I'm here," and took a taxi and went to my apartment.
How did it feel when you compared to 1930 to when you were 38?
Yeah.
And you had that epiphany, so to speak.
Oh.
How did you feel when you went back? What year we're talking about? 22. 2022 or 23?
22, 3, 4, 5. It'll be 3 years soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did it feel then when you landed?
I felt I achieved a lifelong goal. I wanted the Hebrew word is achuzah. It's a foothold. It's a piece of the dream. I didn't want to be a visitor. It's funny, my husband, when we were signing the contracts to buy the apartment, put down his pen and he said to me, "I will rent you a suite at the King David Hotel for 1 month every year, as long as we live, if we don't do this." Because it was a big financial commitment. And I considered it for a minute. I said, throw in business class airfare, maybe we can make a deal. But no. And I decided no, because a suite at the King David is not my piece of the dream.
So you had the olden days in law school when we talked about, I had real property course.
Yeah.
We had a professor, and the professor talked about how back in the 1400s,
yeah,
when you bought a piece of property, the seller would give you some dirt in your hand,
yeah,
and I think it was called season. Okay?
Yeah.
And remember that phrase? Remember that?
I haven't heard that in many years.
Well, but I'm a preeminent lawyer, of course, right?
Of course.
But I'll never forget that they talked about giving the dirt, so it'd be the season. That's kind of
the land.
Is that kind of the feeling?
Yes, it is that kind of feeling, but it wasn't so much about ownership. It was about being part of the dream, this incredible experiment to return a people to their ancient homeland after 2,000 years. It's nothing short of miraculous.
When you
I wanted to be a part of it.
Of course, and you are.
I am.
And here's one thing I want to ask you is, when you had to fill out the application to become an Israeli citizen, were there any questions about your being a Jew? What kind of questions did they ask you about that?
I had to get a letter from my rabbi attesting to the fact that I was born of 2 Jewish parents and I was Jewish, according to Jewish law.
What does according to Jewish law mean in that context?
In that context, it means, in the Orthodox tradition, being born of a Jewish mother.
One topic we might get into this time or the next time we do a show, and that is, there seems to be, and I'm talking as an observer from a distance, you're there, that there's some movement that there might be more restrictions in Israel about what is defined as being a Jew. Is that a misnomer? Because we're going to get to misinformation.
Well,
Did I say something, third mistake?
I'm sorry?
Was that a third mistake I made today?
No. I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's a good inquiry.
A good inquiry. So let's go there for a second.
There are questions, and there were years ago many questions about who is Jew. The halachic, which means Jewish law, the Jewish legal answer is born of a Jewish mother or converted according to Jewish tradition. We welcome converts, but we do not proselytize. But that's probably yet another story. And then there were a great many immigrants from the Soviet Union who believed they were Jewish, but were not technically Jewish according to Jewish law. So how do you handle that? They may have had a Jewish father and not a Jewish mother, but they identified as Jews, and they came to Israel, and they wanted to be part of the country. And there was a question about having the need for them to go through a conversion. And these were very thorny issues. But it's not much of an issue. I mean, people are not arguing about that. There are restrictions in the Rabbanut, which is the rabbinical councils that rule Jewish life in Israel, and are primarily responsible for family issues like marriage or divorce or conversion. So, you know, it's far from perfect. Israel is not perfect.
Well, are any of us perfect?
No, none of us are, and no country is. But on the whole, it's a wonderful country.
Let's go to October 6th, 2023, the day before. What do they call in Israel October 7th? What is there a reference?
October 7th.
Just call it October. So it's like our January 6th in the United States, October 7th. Okay.
Exactly.
So I want to go October 6th. What was it like in Israel in terms of peace, war, whatever? Where were things that day?
Things that day were relatively quiet. We were in the middle of the holiday season, and people were wrapped up in that. And
which holiday are we talking about?
Well, the holiday of Sukkot, which is the 8-day holiday after Yom Kippur, commemorates the Jews wandering for 40 years in the desert. But I mean, the malls were full, and they usually still are, and the cafes and the restaurants were full, and so many things go on in Israel, concerts and plays and book signings and museums, and you could go all day.
So essentially, this is a typical,
life went on.
It was a typical holiday. I mean, there's always risk, and you have your shelter in your house, which we're going to get to in a moment.
I do.
Okay, so we might want to go to this point to some of the other videos. We have one more video and some pictures to get into, and then we'll do October 7th. So if I could have the video, please, Director, with the sound of the siren.
Yeah, that was a...
What is that siren?
That's an air raid siren, which tells you you must go into a shelter. That particular one, they also sound the sirens all over the country on Memorial Day and Holocaust Memorial Day, and that's when that occurred. But it's an identical, much louder than it appears from that video, a siren that we have gotten many, many of in the last 3 years.
What are you supposed to do when you hear that siren?
Well, again, it changed a bit in the when the war with Iran started. Israel's technology is incredible. When missiles are launched from Iran, we get an alert. An alert is just like comes on your watch and your phone, your computer, that says missiles were launched. And then, if they enter Israeli airspace, you get a different alarm.
And you know the difference between the alarms,
Oh yeah, of course, the alarms and the alerts and the air raid sirens, absolutely. You have to be somewhat more careful. You should be near a shelter. And then you hear the loud, piercing alarm, which means you have 90 seconds to get to a shelter.
And do Israeli people know always where they are? If you go to a restaurant, you know where a shelter is? I mean,
You find out, you ask, and many people don't go to restaurants or any public place if they don't have a shelter. I went to get my hair done, and I asked the salon, you have a shelter? Because I wouldn't go unless there's a shelter.
Your hair looks great, by the way.
Thank you.
Can I have the other, let's go through the other pictures one by one and see what we have, and you'll describe what the pictures are.
Sure.
Okay, what is that a picture of?
That's the Western Wall Plaza. That is one of the holy, many people feel it's the holiest site in Judaism. You see that dome above it on the right?
Yes.
That sort of silver dome? That's the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That is on what we believe is the temple platform where the Jewish temple originally stood. But the wall, the Western Wall, is as close as most people can get to it. And it was originally really the retaining wall for the platform of the Temple Mount.
Okay.
So
That's why it's so religious?
yes,
Okay,
it is directly across from what we believe is the foundation stone of the world, which is now under the, not Al-Aqsa, the Dome of the Rock.
Next, okay.
But you'll notice that the Western Wall was empty, completely empty. And it is thronged 24/7 with prayers and sightseers and tourists. Day after the war with Iran started, the army shut it down and there was no one there.
What is the next thing where it says IDF?
These are our instructions. IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, Home Front Command, Iran missile alert stages. We get an app alert and you should stay near the shelter. That means they saw something launched from Iran. In 10 minutes, you get a louder alert, which means the launch was detected approaching Israeli airspace. 90 seconds, you got to get to a shelter. That means either one of the missile defense systems didn't take it out or something, but get to a shelter. 90 seconds.
This chart that shows Iran missile alert stages, is there a difference between the Iran alert stages versus something coming from Hamas?
Yes, there are. Hamas missiles, I mean, we would get an air raid siren, but there weren't the stages.
I see.
Iranian missiles are also more dangerous than, I mean, the Houthis are shooting missiles from Yemen all the time, usually in the middle of the night. They like to wake us up, 2 a.m., 4 a.m. But once the Iran war started, it was of a even more serious nature. So we got these instructions.
Let's go to the next photo. I think we have some more. What is this?
I stayed near my apartment most of the time because I have a shelter within my apartment.
Is that a shelter?
That is a shelter, but it's not my shelter and it's not an individual apartment. That's a public shelter. I was out on the street shopping. I need a little fresh air and you had to shop.
And when was this photo taken?
This was taken in the middle of the Iran war.
Oh, the last couple weeks?
Yes,
Okay.
in the middle of the war. And an air raid siren went off. And, you know, you're prepared for it, you're taught what to do about it, but there's this freeze impulse, like, what do I do now? So I went to the first building that I came to, and I saw people streaming out. And I asked them in Hebrew, you don't have a shelter, or a private or a public? And they said, no, we go to our neighbors. So I said, okay, I'll go with you. And they had 2 small children with them. And we are literally, if not running, fast walking down the street, 2 apartment buildings down, where they knew there was a public shelter. And as we're walking, I said, what do you do with your kids at 2 a.m.? You know, when the alarms go off and you got to get to your shelter. And I got such an Israeli response. Well, it's a great way to get to know your neighbors.
Wow.
So, yeah. But they do. The kids in pajamas. If you have a shelter in your home,
Excuse me.
you sleep there very often, but they drag the kids.
What's in a shelter?
I get there, and there's a woman who lived in the building above it. She's holding open the door, going, welcome, welcome, come in, like it's a party. Not that it was a party or celebratory,
It's like a
but
Passover Seder. Everyone's welcome.
everyone was welcome. Strangers off the street. Half the people in there don't live in that building, including me. I think that's my foot.
Now, what is in the
Okay,
shelter? What's in the shelter?
So it's in the basement. It is just a large square room, all cement on all sides, obviously no windows, nothing.
What's that little hole thing on the top?
That's for, there's a gas attack, then there are air filters.
Is there food in the shelter?
This one, I keep food in my shelter. I keep water, bottled water, and I keep a little bit of food. And some people even keep a bucket if you're really stuck there for a long time. I have not been, I'm fortunate, but this is just a large cement room. And it broke my heart when I got in there.
Why?
Because you see there's that pink blanket there.
Yes.
There were blow-up beds there for the kids. They were accustomed to sleeping there. The kids, and there was a 2-month-old baby, there's a baby carriage right above my foot. 2-month-old baby, there's a dog there on the other end, and a bunch of kids. And kids had their iPads, and they're playing games. They had a lot of things there. I was offered cookies and water.
What do you talk about when you're in a shelter like this, with bombs theoretically coming and this? And
Yeah,
that? What
and
kind
you
of
don't know what's
conversation?
happening.
What kind of conversation do you have?
They asked us to not talk about it because the kids were in earshot. So we didn't want to say, where were you with the last air raid and the bombs hit Beersheba, another city, or they said, stop it. Kids are all here. What broke my heart more than anything was the accommodating way that the kids would go into the shelter. They slept there, they played there, but their faces were like stone. No child should become accustomed to this. None. And I found it to be, on the one hand, wonderful because we all take care of one another, and whoever's out in the street needs a shelter,
Come on
come. But no child should become accustomed to that.
I can remember when I was in first grade, I think it was, at the Commodore Hall School in Shelton, I think kindergarten, first grade, and there was worry about Cuban Missile Crisis or whatever was going on. I don't remember what it was then. And what did we do? We were told to go underneath our desks.
Of course.
You know, and I'm even then, I wasn't cognizant to know what's going on. I'm thinking, even then I'm saying, wait a minute, what good is that going to do? But this shelter, the way you describe it, it was like a familial way, even without family members, to try to together do the right thing.
Do the right thing, protect each other, unity, help each other. That's the Israeli ethic.
I think we have one more photo. Maybe I'm wrong. Is there another photo that we have, or maybe there we've gone through? Yes.
No.
Okay,
we saw that one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now let's go to October 7th. What was there some kind of music festival or something on the 6th into the 7th?
Yes, there was. It was the Nova. Excuse me.
Want some water?
The Nova Music Festival, and it was also the Sabbath, and it was also a Jewish holiday, the end of Sukkot. So most of the people, or probably all of them, that were at that music festival, it was like a Woodstock kind of thing, were secular. And many of them were from that area. Many of them came from other parts of Israel.
How far from Gaza, roughly?
Couple miles, it's close. I can't say
Okay.
exactly,
How
but
about I'm sure it's the kilometers. I
a
apologize.
couple of kilometers, 2, 3, 5 kilometers, something. But people did come from all over. And many of them came from those Israeli, I don't want to call them settlements, they were kibbutz. Kibbutzim is the plural.
And what is a kibbutz?
A kibbutz is like a small town. It's a communal settlement, a communal living type of situation. But they're huge. I mean, many of them. They have factories and they have hotels and they make a living for all the people living there.
Can you characterize the kind of people who would live in those kibbutzim that close to Gaza?
Yes.
How would you
yes.
characterize them?
They were literally on the Gaza border. They were the peace activists. They believed in the two-state solution. They were there because they wanted to show, oh, we can live with our Gaza neighbors and we're friends and we take their children to the hospitals. And many, many Gazans worked in homes in the Gaza corridor in Israel. They were nannies and housekeepers and gardeners, and they had businesses. And it came out during investigations that the people that you shared your home with, that you entrusted your children to, that you sat around your kitchen table and had coffee with, would give diagrams of the homes in Be'eri, Kibbutz Nir Oz, the names of those places, and showed the murderous terrorists who had a dog, where the safe rooms were, who would be more vulnerable.
So what you're telling me essentially is that the people who you thought from Gaza, would you call them Palestinians or Gazans? What would you call them?
They call themselves Palestinians, and that's who they believe they are. You have to respect what they call themselves. But they lived in Gaza, the people that were in Gaza.
So what you're saying
Arabs.
is even the people who were the, quote, civilians, unquote, and there's been a lot of discussion, we're going to get to misinformation, which you wanted to talk about, but even the people who were, quote, civilians, unquote, if they were your gardener, for example, if you went into your house,
your nanny.
And they were giving information to the military, or what was the purpose?
Well, to Hamas, who perpetrated these horrible attacks. They were brutal. They were horrific to the nth degree.
Where were you when the alert came out that there was something tragic happening?
I was in my apartment getting dressed to go to synagogue.
Is that a Friday?
It was a Saturday.
So it was a Shabbos?
It was Shabbat morning.
Okay.
And I had not heard an air raid siren, not on a Memorial Day. And my neighbor was there with me visiting, and
I'm sorry, I'm confused. What did you say? You had not heard?
I had never heard a siren for an alert or for an incoming missile or rocket or anything like that. I had heard the sirens, but only like on Memorial Day or Holocaust Memorial Day. And it wasn't that, and you wouldn't hear a siren on a Sabbath or a Jewish holiday, especially in Jerusalem. And I turned to my neighbor and I said, "What is that? Is that an air raid siren?" And I looked outside my balcony, and there were a group of men that were praying in a minyan, which is a group of men praying, in an outdoor minyan. It was beautiful weather, so
which would be typical for a Saturday, right?
Absolutely.
Did they have tefillin on or not?
Not on Saturday, but they had their talesim, their prayer shawls on. And I saw them flying across the courtyard going into the school building where there's a public shelter. And I realized it is an air raid siren. What's going on?
So that was your first?
That was my first inkling.
Let me ask you, we only have less than 5 minutes left in this show.
I can't believe it.
Well, we're gonna have another show, but do you have any opinions as to why supposedly there was a 6 to 10 hour delay before the military responded? That's rumor. Why wasn't, in 1 minute if you can, why whenever you can, why do you think Israel was not more prepared for that attack? Do you have any thoughts? These are your own thoughts.
Yes, it's a very complicated question. I mean, there were also reports that some inklings had gone up the chain of command and didn't reach the highest levels. There's investigations going on. A lot of people, I'm sure, are responsible. You know, like when something bad happens and you think you should have been prepared, like January 6th happened in the United States, but we were not prepared, and horrible things happened and people died, and then there's an investigation, what really happened. And the bottom line is you hope to learn from it, and I think they certainly did.
One thought, rumor, thought, whatever, is that the military was diverted from that area perhaps to, shall I say, the West Bank or some other area. Is that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, there is military in Judea and Samaria, which are the real names for what the world has now rechristened the West Bank. because there are a lot of Israeli enclaves and a lot of Arab enclaves, so there's always a military presence there. But it's very important to know there was no military presence in Gaza, and many people don't realize that. In 2005, Israel left Gaza. It was Judenrein, Hitler's term for being free of Jews. Every single Jew left Gaza. They even dug up graves. They left businesses. They left infrastructure. They left everything. There wasn't a soldier, a civilian, anyone in Gaza in 2005. And from 2005 until today's date, those Palestinians, those Gazans had the opportunity to build their state. There wasn't a Jew there. And what did they build? Not mosques, not infrastructure, not hospitals, not schools, nothing. They built terror tunnels. They built rocket launchers or got them from Iran.
Who's the they?
Well, mostly Hamas, which was the leadership that was voted in by the Palestinian Gazan people.
I had promised you that we were going to get into depth about misinformation exists. When are you going back to Israel? Roughly.
It's supposed to be, my kids will hear this and they'll get to me, but probably early September, before the Jewish holidays.
Okay, I'm going to hope to get you back for another show if you're willing to do so.
I'd be happy to.
But I'd like to, if there were one piece of misinformation that you think people in America are getting, we'll get into much more detail the next time.
Okay.
If there's one particular one that you would like to point out, what piece of misinformation do you think is out there that you think is a shanda, tragedies?
It is tragic.
What's the one?
On a lot of levels. That Israel is an apartheid state, that they're white settler colonialists, that they do ethnic cleansing and genocide. Those are horrific slanders against the state of Israel. And I can go one by one and tell you why. Israel does not commit genocide against the Palestinian people. Their population has grown tremendously.
The Palestinian population.
Palestinian population. Genocide means killing off people. It's not. You want to know about a genocide? I'll tell you about a genocide, or about ethnic cleansing, removing a certain group of people from a geographical area. In 1948, 800,000 Jews, 800,000 were expelled from Muslim-majority countries. 800. They were just tossed out because the state of Israel started and so many Muslim-majority countries declared war on Israel. What did they do? They didn't have a UN organization like UNRWA to keep them in perpetual victimhood. They went to Israel. Some went to the United States, some went to Europe, but they went to Israel and they became part of a democratic nation and they built up the country. They didn't do that in Gaza. They didn't do any of that. They built terrorist tunnels and launched these brutal attacks, rape and burning babies and just murder.
Veronica,
Big difference.
The show is, unfortunately, the hour has passed quickly. I just want to say, rarely does Babel Potzner give someone else the right to do the last word, and you have the last word.
Thank you.
This has been Babel Potzner and the great, I mean, honestly, Veronica Reich, who's given us a story, and I hope to have her back for another show before she goes to Israel, back to Israel. But I want to thank you very much for telling us what you had to say. What an interesting story. This is Babel Potzner on The Bobby O Show. Shalom.